This is the story of how Bionicle went from the top-selling LEGO theme in 2003 to being discontinued 2 times, to then finally seeing a glimmer of hope in 2026 due to a shifting target market. In the late 90s, LEGO needed a hit. LEGO had losses of over $47 million in 1998 due to increasing competition. To try to explain this, the conclusion that LEGO came to was kids want more than just bricks. They want lore and action-packed play features. LEGO's first attempt at turning things around was LEGO Star Wars, and this was a huge success, except they had to pay royalty payments to Lucasfilms, which cut into their profits. This gave LEGO the idea to create their own IPs with stories and lore that they'd create themselves, and this resulted in a lot of the themes you may remember from the early 2000s. But Bionicle was the first to do it. You had comics and books, and eventually movies and video games. The plan was simple: get kids invested in the world of Bionicle for free or cheap, and they'll naturally want the toys. The Bionicle comic series, which was fantastic for what it was often given away for free with LEGO Magazine, which was also free. It didn't feel like LEGO was advertising Bionicle. They were just telling a story that kids got invested in that would naturally lead to toy sales. The original heroes were the 6 Toa. They were originally packaged in canister-shaped containers. This was because apparently they were planned on being released in vending machines, but this idea was scrapped and they were just sold like other LEGO sets on the store shelf. And Bionicle became a massive success in its first year, earning LEGO about $140 million in 2001. And then in 2003 as well as 2006, Bionicle was LEGO's #1 theme, with not a single other theme being able to match its profits. However, in 2009, LEGO decided to discontinue Bionicle, and they officially pulled the plug in 2010. So was this just a fad? Maybe, but I think it's a little more complicated than that. The Bionicle lore in the comics by Greg Farshti started off with 6 main characters: Toa's Tahu, Lewa, Gali, Onua, Pohatu, and Kopaka. And along with these characters, we got several little bad guys, as well as some side characters like the Matoran from McDonald's. Now, this started off as a huge success, but there were problems. The 6 Toa, which were the most popular figures, were only $6.99, which if you account for inflation would be about $13 today. So after enough birthday and Christmas presents, you'd eventually have all the main characters, and why would you buy more? So LEGO introduced the Bohrok. The Bohrok were a swarm-like creature, and this was supposed to encourage army building, which is basically when you buy a bunch of the same LEGO figure. And the Bohrok were very popular, but eventually LEGO was going to run into a problem that they now understand very well. When you're talking about toys, typically the good guys sell a lot more than the bad guys. That's why Superman has a mech and Lex Luthor is just a minifigure in this particular set, even though it would make way more sense if it was the other way around. The Bohrok may have been succeeding for now, but LEGO knew they had to find a way to sell more good guys. And so the Toa Nuva were born, or reborn. This was a really smart business move, and this was peak Bionicle in my opinion. I was into Bionicle before, but I was super invested in the whole Toa Nuva arc. Basically, these were the same 6 characters you've been following this entire time, just with a new, more powerful form. So you're still invested in the same story, but now you have 6 new Toa Nuva figures to put on your Christmas list. Most of these designs were really cool, with only a couple of them being inferior to the original designs in my opinion, but it worked. Shortly after the Toa Nuva, we got the Bohrok Call, which were very similar to the original design, but they still looked super cool and were still very popular. One thing I haven't mentioned up until this point, and that completely flew over my head as a kid, is that the masks for each of these characters had a collectible element going for them. You had the standard masks that came with each character, but you could also buy packs of new masks that might have those same masks in different colors, and it made collecting them all kind of tricky and really fun. And these alternative masks also allowed for some really cool recolors of existing characters. The next big bad guys were the Rahkshi. These were robot suits that were controlled by a little slug inside, and these were also quite popular. But LEGO had one more trick up its sleeve before things started to go downhill. LEGO decided to break the rule of 6. There are 6 different heroes, 6 different bad guys, to represent the 6 unique element types: fire, air, water, ice, stone, and earth. Some of these Toa may be at risk of layoff due to redundancy, but basically the idea was the more different colors there are, the more sales. And it had always been 6 up to this point. So they added a 7th Toa to really get people hyped up, and it worked. I watched the Mask of Light movie so many times as a kid, and fun fact, the voice of Jala is also the voice of Vert Wheeler in Hot Wheels World Race and Acceleracers.
Takua! 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 Haven't you heard? I'm a team of 1. You said as soon as I was 16, I could drive the car.
Now you know. I saw the movie, I had the Bionicle game, I had all the comics. I was super invested in the story at this point. And so I couldn't wait to see what would happen after they, spoiler alert, defeated Makuta. But then this guy ruined everything. Now look, I'm aware that plenty of people loved the Metro Nui storyline and everything beyond that. And if you did, I'm happy for you. But from my perspective, we were at a point where Bionicle was at its peak. I was fully invested in this team and these characters. And then this guy just decides to reboot everything along with mostly new characters I'm not fully invested in yet, with the most insane lore dump I've ever seen. I hadn't completely fallen off of Bionicle yet, but every time a new comic would show up in the mail, I was hoping this guy was done yapping about Metro Nui so we could get back to the original squad and see what happens next. But it just never ends. Let me know if you felt the same way. I'm sure that plenty of people will disagree, but I truly believe that this is what killed Bionicle. And I'm not saying that any of the new storylines are bad. I'm not even saying they didn't wrap up the original storyline well. I'm just saying that Bionicle got a bunch of kids hooked in this storyline, and then at its peak when they were selling shoes, toothbrushes, and video games, they decided to just completely reboot it. I mean, when you look at it in hindsight, I'm not surprised at all why Bionicle started to decline. Now, to be fair, when it comes to toy sales, they may not have had much of a choice. You could already see them looking for ways to sell more toys. They included limited edition Krata, the little slugs, in the Rahkshi sets, basically encouraging kids to maybe get the same figure they already had just to get the limited edition Krata, and so LEGO may have thought we need all new characters, especially good guys, to sell more figures. But eventually things did decline. Bionicle was cancelled, revived, and then cancelled again, and aside from a few Easter eggs, that's pretty much been it for Bionicle. However, this wasn't a failure by any means. This formula of building a lore for themes was used again and again, most successfully with Ninjago. Greg Farshty, writer for the Bionicle comics, also wrote for the Ninjago graphic novels, and Ninjago has been LEGO's most successful original IP to date. But is there a future for Bionicle? I think there can be. We're probably never going to see Technic-based Bionicle figures ever again, and we're probably never going to see a new generation of kids getting into Bionicle again, unless they do like a Fortnite collab. But LEGO's target demographic is different than it was in 2001. With the rise of tablets and video games, the toy industry actually shrunk 7% in 2023, while LEGO sales grew by 2% that same year. Many attribute this to LEGO tapping into the kidult market. This hasn't been without some backlash, but overall they seem to be succeeding at this strategy. Right now, they seem to target these new adult fans with big, complex, licensed sets, but they could potentially appeal to this audience with some callbacks to some of their older themes. And it seems like they've been testing these waters. We got the minifig vending machine set, which includes several new updated minifigures referencing very old themes. And apparently Bionicle was originally considered for this set, but got cut because of the budget. But most recently in 2026, we got the Bionicle cosplayer minifigure. This is a new CMF minifigure based on the original Toa Tahu, and fans online are already clamoring for more. And while it's unlikely that Bionicle will ever return to its former glory, I hope that we can at least get maybe one commemorative Bionicle set, maybe with minifigures similar to this. Ideas like this have been submitted to LEGO Ideas before, but so far we haven't really seen anything like this happen. However, I do think it's very possible and this could be a test run, but let me know in the comments what you think, and if you're new here, maybe consider subscribing.